massive climate march that happened in New York City yesterday. We were hoping that our friend from the Sunrise Movement, John Paul Mejia, would be able to join us. He unfortunately is on a bus back to D.C. from New York, but was part of I'm sure there are estimates in terms of how many people showed up, but based on a bird's eye view, I would say there was at least, tens of thousands of people that showed up for this march. I mean, this was pretty serious stuff. And, a number of the presidential candidates showed up. AOC was the primary speaker of the event. And it really shows this, Peter Thomas was there. So that shows a sense of urgency that this event has. And you're going to get a glimpse of that right now.
Tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets of New York today. They want world leaders to devote more resources to fighting climate change and phase out fossil fuels. The annual UN General Assembly hits its peak this week. Similar protests also took place in the UK, Germany, India, and South Korea.
Let's go, hey, hey. Oh, oh. Fossil fuels have got to go, hey, hey. Oh, oh. Fossil fuels have got to go.
Meanwhile, scores of arrests today, 114 of them to be precise, as climate change protesters take one of the world's most crucial issues to the streets of New York. They're pushing to more aggressively eliminate use of fossil fuel. Not coincidentally, they're also arriving in New York this week, the UN General Assembly.
Loud, angry, and defiant. Hundreds of activists from all over the country marching on the city's financial district, daring police to make arrests, which they do, passing out the flexi-cuffs and moving in.
This is our last resort. We're bringing the crisis to their doorstep, and this is what it looks like.
This is nonviolent civil disobedience in order to make changes and send a big message to the powerful people.
We're not allowed to have civil disobedience anymore. We're having a serious problem with having civil disobedience nowadays. Apparently, that is not something we're allowed to do. So they just keep making those plastic bracelets to keep tying around the activists or charging them with RICO charges. There's that.
Yeah, I think that this is only going to get much more interesting as we go forward. But here's the problem. Here's the real problem. This is no different than if you are in a labor union and you want to strike. If you do a massive march for one day, it's great optics, but does it yield any real results? You need to be marching that way for months. For months. That's how it happens.
You got to do it like they do it in France. But again, we don't have no by design, and resistance is being really stifled. Oh, by the way, did you by any chance catch how much? For people who aren't aware, the Cop City activists, 62 of them, I believe, have been charged as part of the state RICO statute, which is so absurd. We have talked about this before, but in the context of the money laundering charges, do you know the amount of money that is the amount of money at which is at issue? That they're, do you know? Because I know, and it's $6,000. It's $6,000. The feds are going after people for money laundering, $6,000. So like if that doesn't scream pretense, that's just so crazy. But yeah, it's $6,000 is why money laundering, and it was based on the bail fund. That's what it was. It was the bail fund for the activists.
The thing about the climate crisis, and this goes to our friends in the chat who are on the political right or just don't buy into this whole notion. The fact is, the climate crisis is very real, and it is very real as it is down here for a number of different reasons. We don't have clean water. The water supplies in this country are being absolutely decimated. If you watch our friend of the show, Jordan Chariton of Status Quo News, he covers this all over the country. Whether it's Flint, Michigan, whether it is East Chicago, Indiana, whether it is Kalamazoo, Michigan, whether it is
East Palestine,
Ohio, and the list goes on and on. the level of water contamination, clean water contamination as a result of fossil fuel usage cannot be denied.
And it's not just fossil fuel, though. It's other contaminants. It's other types of industry and other types of toxic polluters. It isn't just from fossil fuels, but it's still, obviously there is this huge disparity as to where those things happen and to whom those things happen.
I've been a proponent. I know that there are people who are still skeptical to what degree it actually will make a difference based on the materials that are needed to create it. But for me, the fastest way to get off of coal and natural gas is nuclear power. We have evolved to a fourth series now that basically replenishes nuclear waste. Now, there are obvious issues, regarding the materials that are needed to create the actual plants themselves. But that is your best option right now, because the materials that are required to create the electric cars, there was a gentleman who was interviewed by Jordan the other day at the UAW plant who basically touched on this point.
Me too, Teresa. I'm going to be there November 10th, somewhere, I think, no, from the 11th to the 13th. I'm going to be there, not necessarily in a tree, but with the trees. Anyway.
As I was saying, I think it's very important that we recognize that alternative energy is going to be necessary in order to mitigate this problem, because it's very real. Now, you guys can pretend like the climate crisis doesn't exist. And yes, you can point the finger at China and India. Correct. But you know what the United States has always been, probably for the past 125 years, maybe 150 years, probably since the Civil War. We have been the nation that sets the trends all over the world when it comes to energy. We have. That's not new. There's other countries that are ahead of us now. And if you want to point the finger at China, yes, China's carbon footprint is larger than ours, and they also have a population 3 times the size of ours. Have you seen their high-speed rail? Have you seen their solar fields in the South China Sea that stretch thousands of miles? We don't have anything like that in the United States. We could. There's a lot of things that we could be doing. And remember, anytime, and I mean anytime, is technology perfect? Of course not. But anytime you see any complaints regarding, let's say, wind energy, those things are being funded and pushed by big oil.
Word. And you know what's second? Big ag.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's second, is big ag. And neither of those things are going to change anytime soon. But that is the truth right there. Thank you.
If you think spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year, in some cases $1 trillion every year, and that's not even including the money we're sending to Ukraine, and God knows what type of environmental destruction that's causing. So don't sit here and talk about how you care so much if you can't even admit the truth about endless war, because that is essentially where the overwhelming majority of this comes from. And don't get me wrong, the rich have their hand in this in a significant way. Just look at how much of a carbon footprint is caused by private jets. Like the amount that private jets cost.
Yeah, that's actually
insane.
Huge. Was that our friends at More Perfect Union put out that really good video recently? Guys, check out More Perfect Union if you haven't. They did a really nice video recently pointing out that and what the differential is proportionately when you fly private, like these people that fly their fancy jet. And I have been privileged to have gotten to fly corporate before, and I must say it is really nice and it is really enticing. And once you've traveled that way, I can definitely understand not wanting to go. Like, oh, it's glorious.
Look, we're either going to have to accept the fact that an alternative move is going to need to be made in terms of the primary energy consumption that we do. And if we do not accept that, then there is going to be a mass extinction on this planet. We're already in an extinction phase. People are dying at extremely high rates. You're just not, you just don't know about it.
No, we're knowing about it. Are you not seeing floods and fires and mudslides? Like,
yeah.
It's like a floods and fires and mudslides. Oh my.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.